Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'd like to welcome you to 51st session, part A, in which we'll be looking at al-Qadir, al-Qadir, and al-Muqtadir, names 72, 73, and 74. But before that, we'll greet our regular students, beginning with Sister Rashida Abdul Rashid from Virginia. Wa alaikum salam. To Osas. Wa alaikum salam. He asked whether the lecture was postponed yesterday. Yes, it was postponed till today. Yasmin Ismail from South Africa. Wa alaikum salam. Hamdani Nasiri from the UK. Wa alaikum salam. Naziruddin from Melbourne, Australia. Wa alaikum salam. Nadira Tajuddin from Melbourne, Australia also. Wa alaikum salam. Zahida Shah. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Khabir Sharif. Wa alaikum salam. Neef Davidson from Ohio, USA. Welcome back. Wa alaikum salam. And from the UK, peace. Alaikum salam. Salma Hayak from the land of Punt, that's Puntland. Wa alaikum salam, that's a part of Somalia. Faisal Kashmiri from Kashmir. Wa alaikum salam. Hussein Jordan. Wa alaikum salam, brother. Muhammad Amir. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sending lots of love from Tamil Nadu. May Allah love you for loving us for His sake. Tamil Nadu in India, southern India. Khalid Tiha from Ethiopia. May Allah love you for loving me for His sake also. And from Nigeria, Abu Bakr. Wa alaikum salam. And Roshan Ali from Mauritius. Wa alaikum salam. Allah bless you. Ayman Mirza from occupied Kashmir. Wa alaikum salam. And with that, we'll now move on to the second part of our session. That is the actual session. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulihil Kareem. Wa ala ali wa ashabi. Wa man istanna bi sunnatihi ila yawmiddin. All praises due to Allah, and may Allah's peace and blessings be on His last Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and on all those who follow the path of righteousness until the last day. This is session 51A, or part 1, of Al-Qadir, Al-Qadir, and al-Muqtadir, names 72, 73, and 74. The able, the enabler, and the completely able. In terms of Quranic location, the divine name Al-Qadir is mentioned in 12 places in the Quran. Among them, قُلْ هُوَ الْقَادِرُ عَلَىٰ أَنْ يَبْعَثَ عَلَيْكُمْ عَذَابًا من فوقكم أو من تحت أرجلكم ويلبسكم شيعا. Say He has the power to send punishment on you from above or from under your feet, or divide you into discordant fashions. factions. Surah Al-An'am, verse 65. The divine name al-Qadir is mentioned 45 times in the Quran. Among them is أينما تكونوا يأتي بكم الله جميعا إن الله على كل شيء قدير. Wherever you are, Allah will bring you together. Indeed, Allah has the power to do everything. Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 148. And al-Muqtadir is mentioned 4 times in the Quran. Among them, كذبوا بآياتنا كلها فأخذهم أخذ عزيز مقتدر. That is because Allah is the supporter of the believers and the disbelievers have no support. Meaning, that's Surah Al-Qamar, verse 42. Linguistically, Al-Qadir and Al-Qadir and Al-Muqtadir come from the triliteral root Qaf, Dal, Ra, with Qadrun as its verbal noun. It has 4 main meanings. The first meaning is to have the power to accomplish and to be capable. The second meaning is to measure, to distribute something, or to make manifest. The third meaning is to decree or ordain. And the fourth meaning is to prevail. Derivatives of this root appear 132 times in the Quran, in 11 different forms. Example of forms: yaqdiru, he is able; qaddarna, we decreed; al-qadar, the power; qadirun, to be able, or he is able. Actually, Muqtadir comes from the 5-letter root Alif, Qaf, Ta, Dal, Ra, with iqtidar or iqtidarun as its verbal noun. However, it carries the same meaning as Qadir. The present participle is Qadir, one who is able, and its intensive form is Qadir on the Fa'il pattern that we know well. And Muqtadir is an even more intensive form of the present participle on the Mufta'il pattern. Relative to Allah, the 3 divine names, Al-Qadir, Al-Qadir, and Al-Muqtadir, all imply ability, power, and omnipotence. This means that Allah is able and has the power over all things, in the heavens and in the earth. His ability means that he is able to create things out of nothing, and is also able to cause things to disappear. The power attribute of Allah means that he has absolute power. He is the one who is capable of doing everything, who has perfect power over creation, who measures everything with perfection, and who is the one who decrees all that was, is, and will ever be. His ability combined with his infinite knowledge makes him Al-Qadir and Al-Alim. His power also means just that. As Allah said, يُعَذِّبُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيَغْفِرُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ وَاللَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. He punishes whoever he wills and forgives whoever he wills. And Allah has power over everything. Moving on to the application according to Ibn Battal's 4 principles. The first of which is to adopt where applicable. All 3 divine names, Al-Qadir, Al-Qadir, and Al-Muqtadir, may be adopted and applied in a number of different ways. The first and most important of which is to properly understand the foundations of belief in Qadr. Belief in Qadr, the destiny or fate, is the 6th pillar of Iman, which Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gave in his answer to Angel Gabriel's question regarding Iman or faith. Within the context of Islamic teachings, the reality of Qadr has been made so crystal clear that there is no need for any argumentation, disagreement, or debate regarding it. Belief in Qadr simply means accepting that Allah has preordained everything. Allah stated in the Quran itself, Inna kulla shay'in khalaqnahu biqadar. Indeed, I have created everything preordained. Surah Qamar, verse 49. That is, Allah created everything and predetermined its measure or predestined its reality. The destiny which Allah al-Qadir has set for things is consistent with His wisdom, on the basis of which He created all things. It is consistent with the goals and benefits which Allah al-Muqtadir intended for His creatures. However, belief in destiny is itself based on four basic principles. The first principle is Allah's complete knowledge, or ilm. The principle of knowledge relative to Allah refers to the belief that Allah's knowledge encompasses all things. Nothing is outside of His knowledge. Nothing of the past, the present, or the future is unknown to the Creator, al-Qadir. Whether the knowledge is related to the actions or deeds of God, or whether it is related to the deeds of His creatures, it is all the same to Allah. His knowledge is not limited by the broad outlines of what will happen in history, but includes detailed knowledge of the minutest actions of every individual. All of Allah's divine attributes are infinite, without beginning and without end, as He is Himself infinite. He is Al-Hayy, that we looked at previously, the ever-living, the infinite. Consequently, Allah's knowledge is completely without limits. This principle of boundless knowledge is mentioned in numerous verses of the Quran. For example, Allah said, Inna Allah la yakhfa alayhi shay'un fil ardi wa la fis sama. Indeed, nothing in the heavens or the earth is hidden from Allah. Surah Ali Imran, verse 5. There is nothing in creation unknown to Allah. The earth and skies, relative to humans, represent the totality of creation. However, even the knowledge of the past, present, and future is hidden from His creation and is known only to Allah, as He states, وَعِنْدَهُ مَفَاتِحُ الْغَيْبِ لَا يَعْلَمُهَا إِلَّا هُ. He, Allah, has the keys to the unseen. No one knows about them except Him. Surah Al-An'am, verse 59. All that is unperceived by creation, due to the limitations of their senses of perception, is known to Allah. To claim that there are some aspects of knowledge unknown to Allah is to deny this principle and attribute falsehood to Allah and His messengers. It also involves denying the perfection of Allah, because the opposite of knowledge is either ignorance or forgetfulness, both of which cannot possibly be attributed to Allah. This is a key element in the process of creating destiny, as without absolute knowledge of the future and what would happen in the future, with everything which takes place in the past, it would be impossible to fix the future. The second principle is the writing. This principle is based on the belief that Allah has already recorded the events of the lives of all and everything that exists, will exist, or have existed until the last hour of this world and beyond. Evidence of the comprehensiveness of Allah's recorded knowledge can also be seen in the following verse. Alam ta'lam anna Allah ya'lamu ma fi as-sama'i wal ard inna dhalika fi kitabin inna dhalika 'ala Allah yasir. Don't you know that Allah knows all that is in the heavens and the earth? Indeed, it is all in a book, and indeed that is easy for Allah. Surah Al-Hajj, verse 70. This was confirmed by the Prophet ﷺ with additional details in an authentic narration conveyed by his companion Ubadah ibn Samit, who reported him as saying, the first thing which Allah created was the pen, and He told it to write. The pen asked, what should I write, my Lord? And He said, write down what was decreed about everything till the last hour comes. The verse and hadith confirm the existence of a written record of everything that was and would be. Not because Allah might forget and needs to check the record from time to time, as He has already said, وَمَا كَانَ رَبُّكَ نَسِيًّا, and your Lord is never forgetful. Surah Maryam, verse 64. Allah mentioning the record is simply to affirm for the jinn and humankind the fixed nature of the future and Allah's complete knowledge of it. We should also be aware that Allah's knowledge is not limited only to the generalities of the future, as some have claimed, but it includes all the fine details. Those who claim that Allah only knows the general events of the future and not the specific details until they occur, do so trying to logically reconcile between Allah's knowledge of the future and human and jinn free will. For, according to them, if Allah knew the details of the future, then we could only do what Allah already knew we were going to do. I hope this doesn't mess up your heads. Therefore, we wouldn't have any free will to do otherwise. If Allah knew what we are going to do, and we couldn't do but what He knows we are going to do, then it means we don't have the free will to do what we want to do. We have to do what Allah knows we're going to do. I hope this is not too, mind-boggling, but this is the argument. Philosophers got into all of this, especially coming out of Christianity, where they have a belief also in the destiny. The simple answer to their conundrum is that Allah's knowledge of the future doesn't mean He forced us to do whatever we do. Like a teacher who taught students from grade 7 to grade 12, high school, junior high, who records each student's grades for each subject at the beginning of grade 12. When they reach grade 12, he's taught them already from grade 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He's going to start to teach them now for grade 12, himself and other teachers. The students then, when he's ready to start them off, he writes down the grades, the final grades that the students are going to get in each subject at the beginning of the grade 12 year. The students then attend their classes, study and write their exams, and get the same marks that the teacher recorded at the beginning of the year based on his intimate knowledge of the students. For him, it was an educated guess based on his knowledge of the students. But for Allah, it is not an educated guess, but actual knowledge of the future. So just as the teacher, he wrote those grades that they would get at the end, and they went and studied and did everything and got exactly the same grades that he wrote. He didn't actually know the future, but he had experience with the people and understood these students, how they performed. He had been with them for 5, 6 years already. So he knew who would do what. So he gave them their marks. So it's a guesstimate. But for Allah, but the point is with this is that, did he make those students get those marks? No. He didn't force them to get those marks. They got the marks he predicted, he expected, because he knew them that well. In the case of Allah, it's not a matter of guessing, guesstimating. No, Allah knows. But the fact that he knows doesn't mean he made us do what we did. Absolutely everything has already been recorded and is preserved in the finest details. The Prophet ﷺ also mentioned the books of other future records, like in the case of the developing fetus. Once the first 4 months have ended, an angel is sent to record 4 things: how long that child will live, what provision it will have in life, its deeds, and whether it will be wretched or happy. It was also reported by one of the leading Sahaba that on the night of power, Laylatul Qadr, the deeds and events of the coming year are also recorded. As in the verse, Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil mubarakatin, inna kunna munzirin, fiha yufraqu kullu amrin hakim. Surely I revealed it on a blessed night. That's the Quran. Surely I'm always warning. During it, every wise affair is made distinct. This is the writing. Abdullah ibn Abbas explained that what good and evil will happen in the coming year related to the sustenance and lifespan is written in al-Muqtadir during Laylatul Qadr. Even the pilgrim or the pilgrimage of a pilgrim will be decided. It will be said, so and so will perform pilgrimage on this night. The well-known hadith scholar Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, who did the commentary, the major commentary on Sahih al-Bukhari, he distinguished, and he's from the 15th century, he distinguished between this decree, which the angels give or on Laylatul Qadr, or which is given to the angels on Laylatul Qadr, by calling it the contingent decree, al-Qada al-Mu'allaq, and the irrevocable decree, al-Qada al-Mubram, which remains with Allah. So he distinguished between the two. One, which was that which was written already, nothing is going to change in it. And the other one is the contingent decree, which varies on Laylatul Qadr. And Allah referred to in Surah Ra'd, verse 39, يَمْحُ اللَّهُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيُثْبِتُ وَعِنْدَهُ الْكِتَابِ. Allah erases and confirms what He wills. And the source of scripture, al-Kitab, is with Him. Surah Ra'd, verse 39. This is also what Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was referring to when he was quoted by Salman as saying, لا يرد القضاء إلا الدعاء ولا يزيد في العمر إلا البر. في العمر ولا يزيد في العمر إلا البر. Nothing can change the divine decree besides supplication, and nothing can increase one's lifespan besides righteousness. So dua can change qadr. However, one's record with Allah in the preserved tablet, the Lawh al-Mahfuz, is immutable. Consequently, a person sincerely praying on Laylatul Qadr may result in their record with the angels being altered before the record becomes immutable and seals one's fate for the coming year. Dua on that night has the power to change the contingent degree. Thus, the night is known as both the night of power and the night of decree. The writing of the decree or the destiny addresses its immutability and thereby confirms Allah's complete knowledge of the future in the finest possible details. The third principle is in accordance with Allah's will. Everything which takes place in creation happens according to Allah's will, whether it is a result of Allah's action or a result of what is done by humans or the jinn. Allah said, Inna Allah yaf'alu ma yasha. Indeed, Allah carries out all that He wills. He also said that He could have guided all human beings if He wished. وَلَوْ شَاءَ لَهَدَاكُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. If He wished, He would have guided all of you. Surah Nahl, verse 9. And He also affirmed that nothing evil can befall us without Him permitting it to happen. مَا أَصَابَ مِن مُصِيبَةٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. No calamity occurs except by Allah's permission. Surah Taghabun, verse 11. The illustrious companion Ibn Abbas explained that permission here meant command. These and other verses show that whatever action of Allah takes place is by His own wish. And there are many other verses which indicate that actions of His creatures are likewise in accordance with His will. For example, وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. You all shall not will except as Allah wills, Lord of the worlds. Surah Takwir, verse 9. Even if we have the chance and we decide to go on the straight path, we will not be able to do it unless Allah wishes for it to happen. Of course, it is common sense that Allah wouldn't prevent us from doing so, as He has instructed us time and time again to take the straight path. However, the fact still remains that the actions of Allah's creatures are all according to Allah's will. If Allah did not wish them to act in the way they did, the action would not have occurred. They may make the mental decision, the intention, but to complete the act, that is purely by Allah's will. This principle confirms Allah's complete control of creation. Because if He didn't have control completely, complete control of His creation, it would mean that He wouldn't know what they would or would not do. Therefore, He could not possibly fix the destiny for them. So this is an essential principle which has to be there for Allah to fix the destiny of everyone. The fourth principle is that Allah has created everything. Everything besides Allah, al-Khaliq al-Bari, is created by Him alone. There is no other true creator in the universe. Only Allah is uncreated. The creation is completely Allah's creation, and whatever is produced or created by them is also a part of His creation. Whether their words or their deeds, they are all part of Allah's creation. because the words and deeds of human beings are a part of a human being's attributes. Therefore, if a human being is created, this also goes for the jinn, then their attributes must also be created. Allah stated that directly in the Quran. Allahu khalaqakum wa ma ta'malun. Allah created you and whatever you do. Surah Safat, verse 96. Allah speaks about the creation of human beings and the fact that He also created their deeds, because if He didn't create their deeds, it would mean that they could create their own deeds as they wished. And as creators besides Allah, they could create how, where, and when they wished, which would again mean that Allah couldn't fix the future events to create the destiny of all. These four principles represent the different aspects of the foundation of belief in the destiny. One's belief in Qadr is not complete unless each and every part is believed in. This is not the case for the general masses, whose acceptance of Qadr without deep knowledge is perfectly acceptable. This is the case for the educated humans who challenge the concept of Qadr based on their understanding of logic and reason. So these details are not required for each and every human being. But anybody who ends up getting into this, who studies it and seeks to get clarity, they need to understand all aspects and they need to accept them. Qadr relative to cause and effect. It's important to note that belief in destiny does not negate the reality of cause and effect. The cause and effect system is still itself destined or predetermined according to Allah's will. God commanded us to do certain things, which He has ordained will produce certain effects in accordance with the natural laws which He created to run the universe. An illustration of the correct understanding of this concept can be seen in an incident which took place during the caliphate of Umar ibn al-Khattab. This caliphate was between 634 and 644. While he was on his way to Syria, he was informed that the plague had occurred there. He took counsel from his companions whether they should continue on their journey or return back to Medina. They agreed to return back to Medina. When the decision was announced, Caliph Omar was asked, "How can you decide to go back to Medina? Are you fleeing from Allah's destiny, from Allah's qadr?" Omar responded saying, "Na'am, nafirru min qadarillah ila qadarillah." Yes, we are fleeing from Allah's destiny to His destiny. After that, Abdurrahman ibn Auf came and was informed about the situation, upon which he narrated a statement from Prophet Muhammad in which he said that if you hear of plague descending on a place, you should not enter it. Omar's response when he was asked by Abu Ubaidah, "Are you fleeing Allah's qadr?" indicates that acting upon the basis of cause and effect is a part of believing in Allah's qadr. And after answering him, Caliph Omar gave a common sense example, saying to him, "What if you have camels and you enter a valley having two sides, one of them covered with foliage and the other barren? Won't you be acting according to the divine decree if you graze them in the land with vegetation? And if you graze them in the barren land, won't you also be doing so according to the divine decree?" We know well that if a person says, "If it is Allah's destiny, I will have many halal children," but he doesn't get married or even try to get married, such an individual would be classified as silly. Similarly, it would be just as foolish for someone to say, I believe that by Allah's destiny, I will be provided with all my basic needs. But He makes no effort to earn a living to provide for Himself. This is the same principle as tying one's camel. Anas ibn Malik reported that on one occasion, a man asked the Prophet ﷺ, O Messenger of Allah, should I tie my camel and trust in Allah? Or should I leave her untied and trust in Allah? Prophet ﷺ replied, tie her and trust in Allah. اعقلها وتوكل. Using qadr to justify sin. Belief in destiny does not negate the cause and effect laws pertaining to acts which have been commanded and forbidden by the Sharia. This is what we've already said. The cause and effect laws remain, but especially with regards to the Sharia, because this is the area where people sometimes try to justify their actions based on qadr. For example, when Allah's moral laws or physical laws which govern the world in which we live are broken, the Sharia has prescribed certain punishments for them. We're talking about the material causes and effects that are real and authentic. However, regarding the claimed effects of illegitimate causes like amulets, talismans, ta'weez, etc., which are in fact imaginary, they cannot be given any positive consideration with regards to qadr. They are not real legitimate causes. Consequently, no principles or concepts can be derived from using them. Meaning, if a good result comes after the use of such objects, it is by Allah's qadr, that's true, but it cannot be justified by the fact that it is by Allah's qadr, as the use of amulets is an act of shirk, which Allah has prohibited. It could have brought good by Allah's qadr to increase the punishment due to those who use them. This is known as istidraj, or luring or leading on. Allah referred to it in the Quran as follows: وَالَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا سَنَسْتَدْرِجُهُمْ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. But I lead on those who reject our messages, step by step, without them realizing it. Surah Al-A'raf, verse 182. Allah also addressed the arguments of those who defended shirk by using Allah's destiny as proof of its legitimacy, saying, سَيَقُولُ الَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا لَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ مَا أَشْرَكْنَا وَلَا آبَاؤُنَا وَلَا حَرَّمْنَا مِنْ شَيْءٍ. Those who worship others along with Allah will say, if Allah had willed otherwise, we would not have worshipped others along with Him, nor our fathers, nor would we have had any taboos. Allah said, so did those before them argue falsely until they tasted my wrath. Surah Al-An'am, verse 148. There are those who say, if my deed is in accordance with Allah's destiny, why should I then be punished for my sins? The response to that is that one cannot use destiny as justification for disobedience to God. Allah did not force the individual to commit his sins. When he set out to commit a sin, he didn't have knowledge that it was destined for him, because human beings don't know what is destined for them until it takes place. Why didn't he think that Allah has destined obedience and righteousness for him and do that instead, just as he strives in this material life to do what he considers to be good and best for himself? Why don't we treat the affairs of the next life the same way we treat our affairs in this life? If somebody told us that there were two ways leading in the direction of Mecca, one was safe, smooth, and easy, but it won't get you to Mecca, if you go on it. And the other one is difficult and dangerous, but it will take you to Mecca. No one would take the smooth and easy way and say, this is what Allah has destined for me. There is no difference between that and saying that there is a rough, difficult path to paradise, and there's an easy, pleasurable path to hell. The Prophet ﷺ clearly outlined the two paths, saying, حُجِبَتِ النَّارُ بِالشَّهَوَاتِ وَحُجِبَتِ الْجَنَّةُ بِالْمَكَارِهِ. The hellfire is veiled in passionately desirable things, while paradise is veiled by disliked and undesirable things. If we take the easy, pleasing path to the hellfire, why do we then claim it is Allah's destiny that we took that path? Even if human beings had an argument with regards to destiny and their acts of disobedience, that argument is invalidated by the fact that Allah has sent messengers and prophets clarifying the way to paradise, so that there would be no arguments before Allah. As He said, I have sent messengers who gave good news as well as warnings, so that after the coming of the messengers, humanity would have no argument before Allah. رُسُلًا مُبَشِّرِينَ وَمُنذِرِينَ لِأَلَّا يَكُونَ لِلنَّاسِ عَلَى اللَّهِ حُجَّةٌ بَعْدَ الرُّسُلِ. Surah An-Nisa, verse 165. Belief in Qadr has a beautiful result in the life of the individual. When things go well, the individual thanks Allah and does not believe that whatever good things happened were just from his or her own effort. He will not be carried away by pride in his own strength, intelligence, or skill to forget that he is ultimately the recipient of a favor from Allah. Likewise, on the moral level, if a person does a good deed, he is not carried away by a sense of his own goodness. He realizes that he was only able to do so because Allah guided him and gave him the ability to do the deed. This protects a person from feeling that he or she is doing Allah a favor by doing good. Allah said in the Quran, مَا أَصَابَكَ مِنْ حَسَنَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. Whatever good comes to you is from Allah. Similarly, when a person is tried by difficult times, belief in Allah's destiny keeps him from falling into despair or wasting time and energy on an endless round of regrets and self-torture with thoughts of what might have been. The Prophet ﷺ told his nephew, know that if all of humanity got joined together to benefit you with something, they could not benefit you except with something that Allah has already written for you. And that if all of humanity gathered together to harm you, they could not harm you except by something that Allah has already written for you. The pens have been lifted and the pages are dry in the record of destiny. In another version of the same hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, know that what happened to you could not have been avoided, and what missed you could never have come to you. And he also said, be eager for what benefits you and don't be weak. But if something negative happens to you, don't say if only, for if only opens the door for Satan. A person who does not believe in Qadr will instead be proud and deluded when good happens to him or her, and shattered by despair and when trouble befalls him. The belief in Qadr prevents all of that. As was said at the beginning of our session, all three divine names, al-Qadir, al-Qadir, and al-Muqtadir, may be adapted and applied in a number of different ways. We have already covered the first and most important, which is to understand the foundations of belief in Qadr. The second most important is to properly understand the character which belief in Qadr builds. Because the Prophet ﷺ had said that morality was the essence of his message, and belief in Qadr is the sixth pillar of Iman. It is crucial for us to understand the moral characteristics and values which this major pillar of faith builds. Abu Huraira quoted the Prophet ﷺ as saying, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I was only sent to perfect for you the most noble of moral character traits. Morality is something which is concerned with the principles of right and wrong conduct, and is the quality of conforming to the principles of good conduct. The question which remains is, how do we define right and wrong or good conduct? Right and wrong may vary according to the perspective from which one views any action. In terms of the standards of morality, from a political philosophical perspective, under capitalism, the unrestricted use of private property is considered morally good, while under communism, private ownership is a moral evil. From the perspective of culture, inherited practices considered acceptable in one culture may be considered morally unacceptable in another. For example, when a national dance troupe from Papua New Guinea were invited to give performances in a variety of locations in Australia, the principal of a high school to which they were invited objected. He was attacked in the press for being narrow-minded. However, he refused to compromise and allowed the bare-breasted dancers to perform at his school. In terms of social need, the population control or the control of population was critical in China at one point. Consequently, for a woman to be pregnant for a second time was considered morally wrong in China. When the United States of America was involved in World War II, atomic testing was morally sound to protect the nation. After the atomic powers decided to ban nuclear testing, those who attempted to do so, like China, India, and Pakistan, were judged as being morally wrong. From a professional perspective, according to medical ethics, psychiatrists are not supposed to reveal information about their patients, even if the patients turn out to be psychopathic serial killers and people's lives are at stake. From the perspective of religion, for Catholics, marriage is morally wrong for the priests and nuns, and information given in confessionals is kept in confidence no matter how many lives may be threatened by keeping it secret. Democratic morality. In the democratic system, moral values are set according to the preference of the majority. Consequently, it is inherently unstable and incomplete. What was morally right today can be morally wrong tomorrow, and vice versa. Islamic morality. The Islamic system of morality is a complete system which governs human relations with God, with other human beings, and with the environment. It is morally good to worship God and morally evil to worship His creation. Preservation of our lives is morally good, while suicide is morally evil. Taking an animal's life for food or clothing is morally good and acceptable, while killing an animal for sport is morally evil. The foundation of Islamic morality is one that good and evil are according to God's definition. Allah alone knows the ultimate consequences of actions. Consequently, he alone can absolutely define right and wrong for all times. Good and evil may also be defined according to God's pleasure. What pleases him is good and right, and what displeases him is wrong and evil. What God has defined as permissible, halal, or forbidden, haram, is due to real benefit and harm existing in it, whether we are able to perceive it or not. Consequently, Allah's definitions are not at all arbitrary, as some people may claim. With regards to the fundamentals of Islamic morality, there are basically four. One is knowledge. In order to act in a morally correct way, one must have knowledge or be capable of understanding what is right and wrong. Prophet Muhammad has said, the pen is lifted for the book of the child until it reaches maturity, for the insane until he or she becomes sane, and from the sleeper until he or she awakens. Consequently, children, the insane, and those unconscious are not held to be responsible for their actions. The second principle is that of rational choice. Errors due to accident or being criminally forced by others are not considered as evil relative to the person who does it. Though relative to the person who it was done to, it will be considered evil. The Prophet ﷺ had said, responsibility has been removed from my nation regarding acts done accidentally, out of ignorance, or being forced. The third is proper intent. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ had said, deeds are judged by their intentions, and everyone will be rewarded according to their intent. Truly good intentions are only known to Allah. Consequently, in this life, a deed may be judged good according to outward appearances, but in the next, it is judged bad. And the last principle is that of taqwa. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ pointed out that ihsan is to worship Allah as if we see Him. And though we cannot see Him, we do so worshiping knowing that He sees us. Being mindful of God while doing good acts turns them into acts of worship, for which the rewards are limitless. While doing good acts to please others destroys the spiritual value, though the act remains a good act. Great stress has been placed in Islam on good moral character, and Allah proclaimed Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to be the best example to his followers and the world, saying, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرَ وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. The Messenger of Allah is the excellent example for you, who put your hope in Allah and the last day, and remember Him often. Surah Al-Ahzab, verse 21. Then Allah specifically praised the moral character of the Prophet ﷺ for all times, saying, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. Surely you, Muhammad, have a magnificent character. Surah Al-Qalam, verse 4. Although the Prophet ﷺ's companion Ibn Abbas did explain that character here meant religion, that is, Islam. By using the term character to refer to the religion of Islam, Allah stressed and elevated the importance of morality in relationship to the religion. It was also reported that when the Prophet ﷺ's wife Aisha was asked about the Prophet ﷺ's character, she replied, his character was that of the Quran. That is, his manners were according to Allah's instructions in the Quran. Consequently, the development of good character depends on closely following the Quran and the teachings of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in his Sunnah. Thus, the rites and rituals of Islam cannot be separated from good manners. The Prophet ﷺ was reported to have said, Al-birru husnul khuluq. Righteousness is good character. Islam teaches human beings how to lead a morally righteous life by pointing out the proper way to live. Any Muslim who displays bad manners, such as swearing or lying, is either a hypocrite pretending to be a Muslim or a very weak Muslim. Faith is inseparable from action. Abu Huraira quoted the Prophet ﷺ as saying, أكمل المؤمنون أو أكمل المؤمنين إيمانا أحسنهم خلقا. The believer whose faith is most complete is he whose character is best. Consequently, throughout the Quran, whenever Allah instructs humankind to believe, He always links faith with a command to do righteous deeds. And the Prophet ﷺ did the same, saying, وَمَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَلْيُكْرِمْ ضَيْفَهُ. Whoever believes in Allah on the last day should be kind to his guest and kind to his neighbor. That being the case, it's not surprising to find underlying the moral principles at the base of all Islamic teachings. Islam covers all aspects of human existence, spiritual, emotional, social, and economic. Consequently, there is in Islam a network of moral principles governing all human actions with God, with other human beings, as well as with the environment in which human beings exist. For example, from an Islamic perspective, worshiping others besides God would be considered morally wrong and bad character, as we said earlier. In the same way that lying to others or littering the environment would be considered morally objectionable. Therefore, we can assume that each of the pillars of Islam and Iman were designed to develop and enhance a particular set of moral values and characteristics. Without understanding the moral and spiritual goals of the pillars, they remain empty rituals which cannot benefit anyone in the next life. The moral characteristics that belief in divine decree in the Qadr builds are: 1. Patience. How often have we been upset because we've lost money, possessions, or a job? Many of us react to unexpected bad times by indirectly or directly questioning God. Why me and not someone else? What did I do wrong? Or what did I do to deserve this? The real question should be, why not us? Are we so perfect that we don't deserve any trials or punishment? As Allah Himself asked us, أَحَسِبَ النَّاسُ أَن يُتْرَكُوا أَن يَقُولُوا آمَنَّا وَهُمْ لَا يُفْتَنُونَ. Do people think that they will be left alone after saying, we believe, without being put to the test? Surah Al-Ankabut, verse 2. The tests of life are all inevitable and inescapable. We would do well to remember, in both good times and bad times, the sixth pillar of faith, the destiny, Qadr. In order to let the tests increase our tawakkul, our reliance on al-Qadir, instead of increase our deep frustration or heedless jubilation. Prophet ﷺ said, know that if the whole community were to gather together to benefit you with something, they would not be able to benefit you with anything which Allah hasn't already recorded for you. Knowledge that whatever happens is by God's decree gives one the ability to patiently bear the most difficult times. When things do not go as planned, the believer accepts that Allah, in His wisdom, did not allow it to happen because it was not best for him at that time, or in that place. There are so many cases in the West of people reacting violently to loss of jobs or wealth that psychiatrists are being brought into jobs to teach workers how to deal with stress. Nearly 370 people have already died in mass shootings in 2021 in the US, as of today. the 10th of July. The average so far this year is 2 mass shootings every day. In the past, in Miami, Florida, an investor, Arthur Kane, 53 years old, who had as much as $8 million invested in the stock market and lost millions last week, shot and killed his brokerage manager and wounded his personal broker, and then turned the gun on himself, police and witnesses said. Melvin Cohen, a Merrill Lynch vice president, said Kane had received a margin call because of last week's decline in the market. A margin call is to ask the client to put up more assets to cover the falling value of the stock. If the call is not met, the brokerage firm can sell the stock to cover the debt. That was enough to push him over the edge. He went, got a gun, killed the manager of the firm and his personal broker. He tried to kill him also, but just managed to wound him, and then shot himself. Also in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a 58-year-old retired businessman, Vernon Lambert, who reportedly lost $500,000 on the stock market in last week's crash, committed suicide. He just killed himself. Allah addresses such situations like this in the Quran, saying, لَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ فَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. I will test you with some fear, hunger, loss of wealth, loss of life, and the fruit of your labor. So give glad tidings to those who are patient. Surah Al-Baqarah 155. The second moral benefit or moral characteristic is that of rida, contentment. Knowledge that whatever Allah, whatever wealth is gathered was already written gives the individual a sense of contentment when he or she fails in their efforts to gain more. The believer is encouraged to strive to attain the best of this world, but not at the expense of the next world. And after trying one's utmost, one then puts his or her trust in Allah and accepts whatever comes. Belief in the destiny also keeps one from falling into despair or from being consumed with regrets and daydreams about what might have been. Belief in the destiny also protects the believer from falling into the debt trap, the discontented desire to have what others have causes many in the West to live far beyond their means through credit cards and buy now, pay later plans. Once they're unable to make the payments on time, for one reason or another, the banks foreclose and take over their property and kick them out into the streets. Many of the more than 4 million homeless in the USA ended up homeless due to trying to live beyond their means. Many Americans live in cars as they can't afford homes, hotels, or motels. I've seen on the news a number of times people having regular cars. Of course, people might think, okay, they're living in cars, meaning they're living in these vans that are caravans that are like homes. They've got living room, dining room, bathroom, everything. No, no, no. A regular car, 4-door sedan car. They keep their things in the trunk and the back seat. They do work in there in the evenings. When they're going out to work, in the morning they go to a local restaurant, take a bath in the local restaurant, and then come back and prepare themselves and go into work, drive into work. When work is over, they go back wherever they're parking the car, in a parking lot somewhere, and spend the evening, if they do continue work or watch TV or whatever, inside their car until the next day. I mean, it's something I didn't think it was possible, but people are doing it. The Prophet ﷺ gave practical advice in this regard to help the believers accept Allah's decree and to focus on the higher moral quality of gratitude by struggling against its opposite, jealousy. Abu Huraira quoted him as saying, "Look at those less fortunate than you, and do not look at those above you. It is better for you in order that you do not deny what Allah has blessed you with." Rida, or contentment, is the praiseworthy station of not only recognizing but also being pleased with the decree of Allah. We should not let our love for our al-Qadir decrease when something doesn't go our way. Ibn Taymiyyah was quoted as saying, "Contentment is the greatest door by which one may enter to reach out to Allah. It is the main source of tranquility for the worshipper and the door to paradise on earth. Whoever does not enter it on earth will not enter paradise in the hereafter." The third principle is that of stability, a balanced personality, the wasat, the middle way. Awareness that whatever befalls the believer was already written and that it was all according to the permission of God helps the believer to have a stable personality. This state prevents one from being hasty or procrastinating. He or she finds a stable middle point in order to handle life's crises in a balanced and clear-minded way. The believer also remains free from the extremes of happiness that cause one to forget God and the extremes of sadness which causes the ignorant to lose hope and blame God. Consequently, both the trials of good and the tests of evil benefit the believer. Suhaib ibn Sinan quoted the Prophet ﷺ as saying, "The affair of the believer is amazing. The whole of his life is beneficial. That is only in the case of the believer. When good times come to him, he is thankful and it's good for him. When bad times befall him, he is patient and it's also good for him." This is the state of one who has truly accepted God's destiny. Barakallahu feekum. We have now come to the end of part 1 of session 51A. Part 2 will follow on Monday, Allah willing, in which we will cover the remaining 3 principles of the Andalusian scholar of the 12th century, Imam Ibn Battal, in adopting and applying the beautiful names of Allah. Our dua using these 2 names, or these 3 names, will be made at the end of part 2. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We will now move on to our 3rd section, which is that of the Q&A. The first question is from Iman. The ayah that you mentioned about the pen, recording everything to the last hour, is the last hour referring to the end of our world? Yes, it wasn't an ayah, however, it was a statement of the Prophet ﷺ. He informed us that the first thing Allah created was the pen, etc., etc. The next question by Siddiq: just as one has to pay if he breaks Ramadan fasting voluntarily, does this imply the same to Nawafil fasting? No, it doesn't. Ramadan fasting is obligatory. It's obligatory. So if it's broken, if the fast is broken, one does not complete the fast, one has to fast that day over again, or depending on how one broke the fast, one may have to do much more. Whereas in the case of voluntary fasting, because it was not obligatory in the first place, if you decide to not fast the rest of the day at any point, there is no obligation on you to do anything as a result of it. From our Instagram students,
Can I write Allah's names in calligraphy and sell it?
yes, it's permissible to write Allah's names in calligraphically, and to sell it. That is permissible. However, my advice is that, some of the calligraphy becomes so complex, so intricate, where the design takes over to such a degree that for the average person, they can't figure out what this thing is saying. You should have below it, possibly on the same, canvas, you should have the actual name written in readable Arabic, easily readable, along with its meaning. So it serves a purpose more than just decoration. Because if we're going to use Allah's names in art, then its use should still not just entertain our senses, but it should send a message to us. By knowing Allah's name and its meaning, we have taken something beyond just entertainment. Sadaf Ali asks, I wanted to ask, why does evil exist when Allah is all good? And why did Allah create Iblis? Oh, those are big questions. But why did Allah exist? Why did evil exist when Allah is all good? Is that, evil, which is relative in creation, remembering that something may be evil for you and good for me. That kind of evil, because of the good that it provides, it exists. Allah has brought it into existence. Pure evil, where the intent is evil and the act is evil, this is from Satan, from satanic sources. Allah permits it still because there is good which will come from it, though we may not be able to see it. So there's always an element of good for which Allah permits evil to take place. But He punishes those who do the good, and those who do the evil, and the good which comes out of it is a benefit to those for whom it was intended. In terms of the creation of Iblis, Allah created Iblis to worship him, just as He created all other human beings. However, Iblis chose another path, and he became a focus of evil in the world. Question from Instagram. Kasumba Zubair is asking about Salah. is its rituals which must fulfill, or its real communication between the person and his creator, where one is allowed to exercise his poverty needs, dua to Allah. Well, the prayer itself has both a ritual side as well as a communication side. Because yes, it is you communicating to Allah. As such, you should understand what you're saying, and you should express your needs to Allah. However, the time for purely just expressing your needs without ritual, this is after the prayer, in dua. But during the prayer itself is worship of Allah. And it contains du'as, seeking Allah's guidance, seeking Allah's blessings. All of it is there in the ritual. That's why the ritual should be understood and should be performed or should be done with full understanding and not just as acts to do. From Instagram, student.
My husband is in love with another woman. What should we do? We should let him marry her?
Well, that is the better thing to do. If he's able to look after her, then you as his wife should let him marry her. Islam has permitted it. It was the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's the better thing to do, rather than take the opposite position of no way, Jose. I'm not going to deal with this. You marry her, you better divorce me. Going to the reactionary thing. If he's able to look after her and you, then you should be fearing Allah, in agreement, allowing him to marry her. Fahad Sheikh, why did Allah answer Shaitan's dua? Some scholars say it was because he invoked Allah by calling him Rabb. That's why Allah answered, because Rububiyyah is Allah's greatest attribute. Why does Allah answer the dua of an idol worshiper or the wish of an atheist who denies Allah's existence? It's all a part of Allah's plan, under his destiny. Because there was good to be gotten from answering those du'as, Allah answered those du'as. The good may not be at that time, it may be a generation later or many generations later. But nonetheless, when Allah responds to the dua of his creatures, he does so as al-Razzaq, who provides, regardless of what people believe or disbelieve. He is al-Razzaq, and he is al-Rahman, he's merciful, regardless of their disbelief or rejection of him. Abdullah Sheikh asks, Is there a way to cure a person who has been afflicted by an evil eye, but we don't know who is responsible for it? Truffles. Prophet ﷺ had said that truffles can break the evil eye, al-ayn. Some people have taken the ayn here to mean a physical sickness in the eye, that they're pouring truffle water into the eye. Well, that's an interpretation, but I prefer the other interpretation, that al-ayn here in the statement of the Prophet ﷺ meant the evil eye. So truffles can be gotten. They're available all over the world. Look them up if you don't know what a truffle is. And it's not the truffles chocolate candy called truffles. No. We're talking about a mushroom-like fungus. It grows in forests as well as even in the desert. Desert areas, obviously, where there is sufficient moisture for them to grow. So you take it, boil it, and drink it. Praying, of course, to Allah to remove the ayn from yourself. Muhammad Amir, I'm very interested in Islamic studies, but I don't have the resources to learn them well. Can I study Islamic studies after my engineering graduation? Of course you can. What stops you from doing so? You know, of course you can do some now online, because in your studies, you know, you should always give some time to Islamic knowledge. So maybe, you know, for example, online you could study in the IOU Bachelor's of Arts in Islamic Studies. So you don't have to take a full course load. You can take 1 or 2 courses in each semester, which is not pressure on you, but you are building your knowledge gradually. Rather than saying, I'm not going to do anything else but engineering for the next 5 years, I'm just going to focus on engineering. And at the end of 5 years, when I graduate, now I'll start to take Islamic. No, that's not good. That's not the best way. The best way is to do it now. When the Prophet ﷺ said, "Talab al-ilmi farida ala kulli Muslim," seeking knowledge is obligatory for every Muslim, it meant now, as you are able. If you have the means, you have the opportunity, then get it. You don't have to take it all on. You take what you can handle. As the Prophet ﷺ had said, that, you know, Allah is pleased with and loves the good deed which is done regularly, even if it is small. From our Instagram students.
If we know that someone has passed on kufr or shirk, are we allowed to say this person is in hellfire?
If we know that somebody has died in a state of kufr, and that's as far as you know, can we say this person is in hellfire? No. We don't have that authority, because Allah knows best. All we can judge by is the external, what we saw of the external. We can say that if that person died in disbelief in Allah, they're going to hell, because that's what Allah said. That much we can repeat. But if we're going to identify particular individuals and say, this one's going to hell, this one's going to paradise, we don't have that authority to do that. Only Allah has that authority. And He gave it also to the prophets by informing them of those among His companions, for example, who were guaranteed paradise. Question from a traveler in the dunya. You said that bad things can happen to any of us because none of us is good enough that he should be spared from Allah's punishment. How to save oneself from being depressed after realizing it. You save yourself from being depressed by realizing at the same time that so much good has happened in your life, you should be grateful for it. And that if you focus on the good which has happened in your life, it will overcome and override the bad, because there's way more good in your life than bad, without a doubt. No matter how bad you think your life is, there's still way more good in your life than bad. Abdul Zahir, can you please briefly tell us about Udhiyah, what to do and what to avoid? So many confusions about it. It would be better if your question is more precise. The bottom line is that it's not obligatory. You want to do it, you get the reward for doing it. If you don't do it, there's no sin on you. There's no sin on you. It's strongly recommended, if you have the means, to do it. But even if you didn't do it, then no sin. Of course, you should be clear. I mean, there are details that have to do with the animals, or they shouldn't have broken horns, and the teeth shouldn't be falling out. And I mean, basically, you choose an animal which is healthy. You're sacrificing it to Allah. You're not trying to find the cheapest one I can buy in the market. Who's got no teeth, his horn is broken, his eye is, gone bad, he's only looking through one eye. This is, you're presenting something. No, of course, Allah is not going to eat it. You're going to cut it up and distribute it to your neighbors or eat from yourself, whatever, your family. But what you present as a sacrifice of your wealth should be the best that you can. So after that, that for a camel or a cow, 7 people can share in it, and 7 people means not just 7 people. If you have a wife and 6 kids, a wife and 5 kids, you're already 7 people. Does that mean you have to do a camel or you have to do a cow? No. When you, as the head of the family, sacrifice a sheep, that's for you and your family. If your wife wants to do one also, she can. There's no harm. It's good. Allah gives her extra reward. Inshallah. Ahmadi asks, or mentions he's in the BAIS program. That's the Bachelor's of Arts in Islamic Studies program in the IOU, the National Open University, in the university which I founded back in 2010. Is it wise for me to have a dual major? I find myself not fully indulged or engaged, what he means, in my Islamic studies due to a fear of not having a skill that can translate into a career. There's no harm. Have a double major. If you have enough time, you're a full-time student. Yeah, if you're a full-time student, you can do a double major. Do something you're doing Islamic studies, that's for you, and you're doing that more for your general knowledge. And then you take one of the other courses that we offer, whether it's education to become a teacher, or it's Islamic banking and finance to be involved in the financial field, or it's in psychology, that's a medical field, Islamic psychology, or in ICT, IT fields, or in business management. You can take courses there, do your degree there. Inshallah, in the future, we do hope in the coming years to also launch degree courses in public health. This is a vital area needed by the Ummah. Also in mass communications, we're at a loss. We can hardly communicate. The communication field is dominated by non-Muslims. And also agricultural economics. Agricultural economics is very important. Our countries are agricultural countries for the most part. But because we don't have proper knowledge of agricultural economics, we're not getting what our agriculture is worth. We're producing stuff, it's being taken from us at a minimum price and being benefited from, exploited by the advanced world. We remain poor and behind. From Instagram students?
I used to pray 5 times and engaging in Islamic knowledge, but I'm slipping away from it. What do I do?
Well, I would say look at your friends. If your friends are people who are not praying, then you know where it's coming from. What's best is that you have around you people who are going to remind you of Allah, who are going to remind you of Salah. And spend your time, the greater portion of your time, in places where the remembrance of Allah exists. The locations that you're in, where do you spend most of your time? So these are important starting points, which likely, you have strayed from, which has exposed you now to abandoning prayer or dropping your prayers, etc. Then you should also listen to lectures about different aspects of Islam, on a regular basis. You should expose yourself to Islamic knowledge, attend conferences or classes, etc. All of this can do, these are all good deeds, and good deeds increase Iman. Evil deeds, you have to cut out, because it's evil deeds that are bringing your Iman down lower and lower. Hassan from South Africa is asking, can I listen to the Quran in the bathroom? Well, it depends on what you define as the bathroom. If you're talking about the toilet, can you listen to the Quran while you're on the toilet? Well, it's not appropriate. It's just not appropriate. That's not the place to listen to the Quran. But if you're talking about the shower area, you're not on the toilet, and you have the Quran playing whilst you are showering and listening to the Quran, you're listening and reflecting, then that's permissible. Of course, people say, what? Dr. Bilal said you can go in the bathroom and play the Quran. Just be careful here. You have to understand what is the bathroom. I'm not saying you can go and sit on the toilet and play the Quran and listen to it. No, that's not what we're talking about. Because remember, in old times, the toilet was just out back. You went out your house, behind your house somewhere, you found a place in the bush, and that was your toilet. And when you showered, again, people didn't shower in their homes. They would take a bucket of water with them. After they finish doing their stuff, they move away from it, pour the water and take their bath. It's just not in the same place. Same place you use the toilet is not the place where you're gonna take your bath. So this is what we're talking about in your home now, where the toilet is just in one corner and you have the whole rest of the bathroom there. You know, technically speaking, it is permissible for you to listen to the Quran where you're at the sink, washing, making wudu, or taking a shower away from where the actual toilet is. But to avoid any confusion or misunderstandings, etc., my best advice to you is do it, listen to the Quran when you're not in the bathroom. Okay, from Instagram, students.
Why does Allah never answer my du'as?
Well, the question is, why don't you realize that Allah is answering your du'as? Allah is answering your du'as. But He's not answering them the way that you want them answered. That's the question. That's how you ask the question. Why doesn't Allah answer the du'as the way I want Him to answer them? Because though the way you want Him to answer them may not be good for you, there will be harm in it. It's not appropriate. This is not the time. This is not the place. There's a variety of different reasons could be given why He is not answering certain du'as that you make. So what you need to do is when you make dua, as the Prophet ﷺ said, Ud'u Allah wa antum muqinuna bil ijaba. Make dua to Allah, being certain that your prayers will be answered. I mean, of course, if you're involved in haram, you've got money in the bank and businesses with riba and all this other stuff, and you're asking this question, then know that the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah is not going to answer your dua. In general, Allah won't answer your dua if your rizq is haram. Your source of provision, your finance is in haram. Then don't be surprised that Allah doesn't answer your dua. Question, cure for ignorance. To get humanity out of paradise, the devil advised humans to disobey the law of God. What do we need to do to get back to paradise? How is the devil going to stop us? Oh, that's a huge topic. We get back to paradise by obeying the law of God, by obeying God. That is the road to paradise. Road on which we obey God. And there's a lot of other things that come along with it. Getting knowledge, applying that knowledge, being charitable, being helpful, being kind, etc., etc., etc. All of that is from being on the path. Kulthum asks, why does a person have enemies? Why can't life be without enemies? Well, it is the nature of life that we have enemies. We have friends and we have enemies. There is paradise and there is hell. There is hot and there is cold. These are part of the opposites that are fundamental to the life in which we live. So embrace that life. Don't worry about enemies. Worry about your friends. Be concerned about them. Help them. Leave your enemies to Allah. Unless they're physically coming after you, leave them because you know about them. They're there. You can't escape them. Allah will take care of them. Don't bother yourself, your mind, your head, etc., thinking about them all the time. Focus on what is beneficial to you, inshallah. From Instagram,
Can your own family become your test from Allah?
yes, Allah says that in the Quran. He said that in your wives, your children are enemies. Aduwwun lakum. Allah calls them enemies. That they can become enemies. They're not in and of themselves enemies, but they can become enemies. They become enemies when they ask you to do things which are haram, and you do it to please them. Or they stop you from doing things which are halal or obligatory, and you stop doing them to please them. Harun Demisoski. I need to go back to my home country for Eid. I will arrive at home at the time of Isha. Can I combine Maghrib and Isha at home? Yes, you can. Evelyn's bookshelf. We have a difficult time communicating with each other, different languages and cultures. So is it important to know how to communicate with Allah since He is unlike His creation? No, we communicate with Allah following the way that the Prophet ﷺ has taught us. And Allah has made it very easy. You only have to reflect on Allah, and your thoughts, without even words, can communicate. You can communicate through your thoughts with Allah. So the door is wide open for communication with Allah. Inshallah, this is the last of our questions. Okay. There's one more. Amadi, can a man married to his cousin take a woman who is the cousin of both him and his wife as a second wife? Of course. There is no ban on that in Islam. It is permissible. You can marry your cousin. The fact that your cousin happens to be her cousin also is irrelevant. Ahmadi mentions that there's a cultural practice here that denies such a marriage. Well, that's cultural ignorance. Last question.
Sheikh, can you take knowledge from Zakir Naik?
Yes, you can take knowledge from Dr. Zakir Naik. He is knowledgeable Islamically. He is a master of da'wah. And we pray that Allah protect him and keep him and his family safe from the evil forces that seek to destroy the work that he has done through Peace TV. But Allah has kept the work going. May Allah bless him and his family, and may He bless us all. Ameen. With that, we'll close. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. بارك الله فيكم. We will see you on Monday, inshallah, for part 2 or 51B session, second session of this, or second half of this session, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.